The dining room at the Aldrin Terminal Hotel had a name that someone in marketing had clearly enjoyed: the Round Table Grill. Dark oak paneling, sconces turned low, white linen on every table, and above the entrance, carved into a walnut plaque, the hotel's crest and the words Knight's Tier members only. It was the kind of room that made you feel, the moment you stepped inside, that you had arrived somewhere. If they let you in. Harriet Solis had been a member of the Knight's Tier program for 6 years, earned through a decade of business travel, and the kind of loyalty points that accumulate when you spend more nights in airport hotels than in your own guest room. She was a retired school teacher now, flying home from her granddaughter's college graduation, and she had been looking forward to a proper dinner and a glass of wine before her flight. She arrived at the entrance to the Round Table Grill at 6:47 in the evening and found herself standing behind a man she did not know. He was in dress uniform. Army, she was fairly certain, though she could not have named every branch distinction. What she could see, even in the warm half-dark of the corridor, were the ribbons. Row upon row of them, neat and weighted on his left chest, a column of service rendered across decades. He was tall, late 60s, with close-cropped silver hair, and he stood with the particular stillness of a man who has spent a long life learning that composure costs nothing and loses you nothing, and is, in most rooms, the most powerful thing you can carry. He was holding a card, a hotel loyalty card, gold-edged, and he was speaking quietly to the maître at the entrance podium. The maître d''s name, Harriet would learn later, was Reginald Foss. He was impeccable. Black jacket, hair combed without a strand out of place, practiced expression of a man who managed a small but beautiful room and knew it. He was looking at the card the colonel had offered him with an expression that was not quite doubt and not quite disdain. Something in between, something that lived in the space between them without ever declaring itself. "I'm not seeing you in the system," Foss said. "This card may be outdated." "It was renewed last November," the colonel said. His voice was even. Not defensive, simply factual, the way a man states a bearing to someone who has asked for it. "I'd need to verify that. The system can take a few minutes." Foss set the card on the edge of the podium, not handing it back, not processing it, setting it aside. "If you'd like to wait at the bar." A couple appeared at the corridor entrance behind Harriet. White, her age, the man in a blazer, the woman in a scarf and traveling slacks. They moved toward the podium with the easy, unhurried confidence of people who have never once been asked to wait at the bar. Foss looked up, his expression changed, the professional warmth coming on like a lamp switched to full. "Good evening. 2 for dinner." "Please," the man said. Foss did not ask for a card. He did not mention the system. He simply lifted 2 menus and turned to lead them inside. He paused only to look back at the colonel, who had not moved. "I'll be right with you," Foss said, and disappeared into the dining room. Harriet stood very still. She was aware of several things at once: the soft music coming from inside the restaurant, the smell of warm bread, and the colonel's silence. He had watched the couple be seated. He had watched Foss return to the podium. He had not said a word. He reached into his jacket pocket and produced 3 things. He laid on the podium one at a time, with a methodical precision that reminded Harriet of the way her late father, a carpenter, a man who had also been in the army long ago, had always laid his tools out before he began work. The first was his Knight's Tier card. The second was his hotel confirmation, printed, folded once, date clearly visible at the top. The third was his military identification card, still current for travel purposes, bearing his rank and a photograph taken years ago in which he looked almost exactly as he did now. "Colonel Warren Adele," he said quietly. "Retired, room 412. Knight's Tier since 2009. Foss looked at the documents. Something moved across his face. Not recognition, not apology. He picked up the hotel confirmation, examined it at a small, unnecessary distance, and set it back down. "I'll still need to run the card through the system." That couple did not require verification. Foss did not answer that. He was already looking past the colonel, with the distracted patience of a man who has decided privately that a conversation is over. "The café on level 2 is very good," he said. "Comfortable seating, open to all guests." Harriet's hand tightened around her own card. She felt, in her chest, the particular discomfort of a person who can see a wrong being done and has not yet decided what she is going to do about it. She had been standing 6 feet behind this man for 2 full minutes. She had watched what happened. She was 64 years old, and she had lived in this country her whole life. And she knew, with a certainty that sat in her stomach like ballast, exactly what she was looking at. She stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. "I'm also a Knight's Tier member. I'd like to understand the verification policy, because I didn't see it applied to the couple you just seated." Foss looked at her. The warmth that had switched on for the couple in the blazer did not appear. "It's a system issue this evening. Then it should apply equally." She looked at the colonel's documents still lying on the podium. "He's shown you everything." A few steps inside the dining room, a man at a corner table lowered his menu. A woman near the window turned her head. The room was small and quiet, and sound carried. The colonel had not looked at Harriet. He was watching Foss with a calm that was beyond patience now. It was something older and steadier, the composure of a man who has stood his ground in conditions that would reduce most people to something formless, and who finds this particular corridor unimpressive by comparison. He did not raise his voice. He did not reach for the documents again. He simply waited. Foss straightened. "I'll get the manager." "Thank you," the colonel said, as though he had been expecting exactly that. They waited. Harriet moved to stand beside the colonel rather than behind him. A small adjustment of position that felt, to her, enormously significant. The man at the corner table set his menu down entirely. 2 more diners had gone quiet. The manager, who appeared from the back hallway, was a young woman, harried and apologetic in advance, already forming the words of a careful neutral explanation. But behind her, through the dining room's rear entrance, came 2 more people. A woman in her late 40s in a charcoal blazer, moving with the quick certainty of someone who had just been reached on a phone and had come immediately, and beside her the hotel's general manager, who Harriet would later learn, had been in a pre-dinner briefing upstairs when a message reached him that his guest of honor had not arrived. The woman in the charcoal blazer came through the dining room without slowing. She crossed the room in a straight line and stopped at the entrance podium, and her eyes found the colonel's ribbons before they found his face, and then they found his face. And something moved through her own. Not surprise, because she had been told, on the phone 30 seconds ago, exactly what she would find. But something that looked very much like the particular combination of grief and fury that a person carries when they learn that a man they admire has been made to stand in a corridor while his documents were examined and his table went empty. "Colonel Adele," she said. Her voice was controlled and quiet. "I am so sorry. I am deeply, deeply sorry." He looked at her. Brief pause, the kind that holds a great deal without showing it. "Lieutenant Colonel Marsh," he said. "It's good to see you." She had served under his command for 3 years in the late 90s. She was now the Aldrin Group's regional vice president for the Eastern Territory. She had organized this dinner, the hotel's annual Veterans Recognition event. 22 attendees, 16 of them former service members. And she had placed Warren Adele's name at the head of the table because there was no one else it belonged to. She turned to Foss. The general manager was already beside her. "This gentleman," she said, her voice still quiet, still controlled, "is our guest of honor this evening. He is the reason this room exists tonight." She picked up the Knight's Tier card from the edge of the podium and held it for a moment. "He has been a Knight's Tier member for 16 years. Foss opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The general manager did not wait for whatever might have come out. He looked at Foss with the expression of a man who has just understood the full shape of a problem and will address it thoroughly and soon. "Please go speak with HR, he said quietly. "I'll find you in 20 minutes. There was a sound in the dining room, not applause, not yet. Something quieter, a collective exhale, the sound of a room that has been watching something unfold and has arrived, together, at a verdict. Regional Vice President Diane Marsh turned back to the colonel. "Will you come in?" He gathered his documents from the podium, the confirmation, the identification, the gold-edged card, folded them once each, and returned them to his jacket pocket. He straightened. The ribbons caught the light from the brass sconces. "I will," he said. She walked beside him into the dining room, and as they moved through it, happened Harriet, standing at the entrance, would think about for a long time afterward. One of the diners at the corner table stood up. Then the woman by the window, then one by one the people around the room. Not all of them. Most, and then more, rose from their chairs. Not dramatically, not with noise. The way people rise when something worthy passes through a room, and they feel, without being told, that it is the right thing to do. Warren Adele walked to the head of the table and took his seat. He looked to Harriet like a man who had expected nothing less and asked for nothing more. A man who had known, every moment he stood in that corridor, exactly who he was. Foss was suspended pending a formal conduct review that began the following morning. The Aldrin Group issued a written revision to its Knight's Tier welcome protocol within the week. Membership cards to be honored on presentation, no secondary verification required, no exceptions. The general manager's letter of apology to Colonel Adele was brief, formal, and unequivocal. Harriet went back to her table by the window and ate her dinner. She did not speak to the colonel again that night. She didn't need to. Some things, she thought, are carried by the person who holds them, quietly across a whole life, and all the rest of us are asked to do is see them. She thought she had done that. Not soon enough, but she had done it. She hoped, lifting her glass, that it counted.